1, 2, 3, 4.
We'd like to welcome everybody into episode 110 of Talkin G-MAC, our 10th episode of the new podcast that we have here with the Great Midwest Athletic Conference. So there's really no better way, I think, to celebrate the 10th episode than to start talking about basketball, as it is quickly becoming basketball season here in Division II and in the Great Midwest. And I think there's no better person, maybe no better team to kick off our chat about basketball than the Ashland women's basketball team, our defending national champs. And we're joined now by Ashland head women's basketball coach, Kari Pickens. Coach, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to chat about Ashland basketball.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and can't wait to get rolling with the season. So thanks for having me.
Well, as I mentioned, Kari Pickens, you enter your sixth year as head coach at Ashland and into your third year playing here in the Great Midwest. And you do that coming off I don't even know if you could ask for a better season in 2022-23. 2023 national champs, 37-0. As you embark on this new journey and this new year, how do you reflect on last year as you move forward into this year?
Yeah, so last year was an amazing season. I loved our group. I thought everyone was really selfless and bought in. And I think that there are some things that we can really take away from that team that our new group can learn from. Just that every role is important and the idea of whatever is best for the team, we're going to be totally bought in for. With that being said, while we have a lot coming back, we're going to be a whole new team. Every year's team, the identity looks a little bit different. And so I think for us, just being able to really navigate through what our new identity looks like, to be able to relentlessly pursue the same vision and goal that we have. But I'm really excited about our team this year. I think that we have a lot of really good pieces and just trying to make them all fit together well.
Well, you mentioned some of those returners, and we'll get to that in a second. But, I do want to ask from a coach's perspective, you come off a national championship and there's all of this high. You're at the highest level that you can be. You've accomplished, you've checked everything off the list that I think you probably can check off as a basketball team when you don't lose a game and then you win the national championship. As a coach, you come off that high maybe a little bit and it's time to refocus and prepare for a whole new season with, like you said, maybe some new factors and a bit of a new team. What are those conversations like in the off season with your team and in the preseason to prepare some of them for what's to come, coming off that national championship, and maybe not wanting them to dwell too much on what happened last year and really refocus for this year?
Absolutely. You mentioned it early on that you come off the high of winning a national championship pretty quick, and that's okay, right? That's why it's always so important to focus on the journey and not that final destination, because if you only focus on the feeling of what it feels like to win, then it's such a letdown, because like you win, you host that trophy, you come home, there's a celebration, and then everyone has to go to work the next day still. Like nothing crazy about our lives changed from that one win, but it was the journey that made it so special. And so I think for us, continuing to help our players focus on just holding on to the memories of what that season was. That's what they're going to be able to cherish into everything. And then what the conversations look like then transitioning into this year. So we have a program philosophy, and our philosophy has three parts: a vision, core values, and a foundation. And our vision statement is that Ashland University women's basketball is on a relentless pursuit to be the best Division II women's basketball team in the country and make a positive impact on all who cross our path. And so all of our conversations are always centered around that. Are we relentlessly pursuing to be the best? Are we relentlessly pursuing to make a positive impact? And if we can do that again this year, our hope is that the final product can be the same. The story will look different, right? Our story last year was really special in its own right, and this one will look different, but it's about writing that story. And so we've talked a lot about that throughout the course of the summer and the preseason. We were able to take an overseas trip to Italy this summer, which really kind of helped foster some of those conversations, just with different team bonding things that we are able to do, because we know the expectations are high, but what a privilege that is to have high expectations and to really be working to fight for something like we are. So we have one more scrimmage to go and then home opener in just over a week, which is crazy to think about.
Well, I want to piggyback off two things that you really just mentioned there. One, that trip to Italy, that was on my list of things to ask. For those who don't know, that the women's basketball team was able to take an overseas trip. They played a couple basketball games over there. Tell us about how that all came about and really what you guys were able to do and see, and maybe some of those team bonding experiences that you were able to have in a new country.
Yeah, it was. We packed that time full. We got about, so you're allowed time to practice before we go. So we had 7 days where we were able to practice together before we went, which was awesome. As a coach, just being on the court with the team in the summer, I don't ever get that time with them. And so being able to do that was really, really cool. But when we went over there, we played 2 basketball games. We won one and we lost one. We lost to a really, really good Spanish team that was actually traveling Italy, playing a bunch of different American teams. And that was really good for us, I think, because it was the first loss that we had experienced in 37 games, 38 if you include the one that we had won before while we were over there. And it kind of like, I don't want to say like shook us by any means, but I was like, whoa, y'all, we are not invincible. Like, we can lose. We have got to make sure that we are continuing to have a growth mindset. So I think that was really good for us, and that we don't like that feeling, and we don't want to make a habit of it by any stretch. And then when it comes to team bonding, my goodness, the amount of stuff I'll be honest, I probably packed it a little too full when we were overseas. We were gone for 9 days. The first day and the last day were travel days. So you essentially had 7 days in Italy, and we were in 5 different spots in those 5 days. Rome was our center base, and then we kind of just did day trips to all the other places. But I got home and I was exhausted. And everyone was. You're just exhausted. So but I think with that being said, we got to do it together. All of our freshmen got really acclimated. So I do 15-minute meetings with my team, with all of my players every month. And there are normally a lot of tears from my freshmen about homesickness. And I've not had to deal with that quite as much this year because people, they just had more time. They had more time with the team. They had time to get away, to understand like, hey, this is a really fun time of life. So let's enjoy it. And it's made the transition really smooth for us.
You mentioned some of that invincibility, and that's something that I think that anyone who looks at your schedule last year and looks at what you were able to do, you always look at that. What would happen? When are we going to lose? Are we going to lose? Are we going to handle that? And I think that would be something that I don't know how you've talked to the team about moving forward, but that handful of girls that do return from that team last year haven't experienced much loss in their career at Ashland. As their coach, as the leader of this team, what are those conversations like heading into a season? There aren't very many basketball teams that come off of an undefeated national championship season. Ashland's been able to do it twice, in their history. What is that like? Is there talks of, knowing that while being undefeated is great, that maybe it's, not the ultimate goal? I mean, how do you handle that as their head coach?
Yeah, that's a really great question because it is something that needs to be addressed. I don't think that we have, or I know that we haven't gotten to that point yet with our team, because right now we're just focusing on really figuring out what our identity is going to be this year. But it does need to be addressed because, I've been able to be a part of the 17-18 undefeated national runner-up team. that came off of an undefeated national championship team. And then in the COVID year, we were undefeated coming in. And I mean, a loss is going to happen. Like, it just, losses happen. And so one of the things that we talk about at the end of every game, scrimmage, whatever it is, we always say that basketball is what we do. It is not who we are. And we should never let our identity be wrapped up in something so small as a game, right? Our identity always has to be rooted in something so much more. And so when a loss inevitably happens, it's not going to shake us. It's not going to rattle our foundation of who we are or what our identity is about. We know that we're grounded in something so much deeper. And as long as we're able to learn from the loss, then it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. As long as it happens in regular season. Once it gets to tournament time, we definitely don't want to have to learn that lesson then. But like, that's genuinely, that is what we need to talk about. We want to be able to learn those lessons during the regular season when we have time to grow. Because once tournament time comes, we all know it's one and done, and we want to be playing to the very last game.
Well, we talk about that team identity, and while I think a lot of people that follow Ashland basketball will recognize many of those that are on your roster this year, you returned 3 starters in Annie Roshak, Haley Smith, and Morgan Yoder, and 7 that played good minutes for you over the last year. What I know it's early, but what can those core girls do for you moving forward, having the experience that they have?
Oh, it's tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous, the experience that they're able to bring. They know how to play together. They know the system really well. They're really bought into doing whatever is best for the team, which is really special because that doesn't always happen, right? You sometimes get a group of players who experience from one year can then almost lead to entitlement for more playing time, more shot attempts, more of whatever it is that following year. And I haven't ever felt that with this team. This team is led by those 7 returners are like, we are going to do whatever the team needs in order for us to be able to perform at the highest level that we can. And so I think that that's one of the things that set this group of returners apart, is that not only is it their experience that helps us grow, but it's also their selflessness and willing to do whatever is best for the team. And they've learned from great leaders before them. I think of the graduating class that left on a national championship. We had one player on that team, Sam Schabel, who didn't get talked about a whole lot, but she wasn't in rotation. But Sam was one of our best leaders. As a sophomore, she set the school record for made threes in a game. And by the time she's a senior, she's not in rotation, but she was the best teammate. She knew the scout inside and out. She was making us better every single day. And so our experienced players from last year got to see that. They got to see that in action and know that in order for us to win, we have to have a team full of players like that. And so I'm thankful for the example they're setting for our younger kids in that too.
When you talk about experience, I think that always comes into play when you're playing in your regular season and when you're playing through the Great Midwest schedule that you play, and playing through the regional tournament that I think anyone would argue might be one of the hardest regional tournaments, especially in women's basketball, to get out of. But I think last year we saw 4 teams from the Great Midwest make it to the Midwest Regional. So you guys while you were 37-0, I don't think we'd be remiss to say that you weren't challenged in the regular season or in the regional at all. What did those games, playing through the Great Midwest and playing through that regional schedule, what do they do to help prepare your team when you get to that next level?
The coaches in the Great Midwest Conference, they're exceptional. I felt like we were really prepared going into tournament play. Granted, we had to play 2 of them in regional play, which wasn't ideal to have to turn around and play 2 more G-MAC teams. But with that being said, the amount of different types of defenses, the amount of different game plans that we faced throughout the course of G-MAC play really helped prepare us for tournament time, to where we weren't surprised when someone threw something at us. We knew how to handle it. We knew how to attack it. And just a ton of credit goes to, I think, this league and the coaching staffs within this league, which helped us be in in a position to handle those things well? That's a great question, because I mean, the amount of times that we were going over how KWC guarded us, how Malone guarded us, how Hillsdale guarded us, all different types of teams that had different game plans. It really, I think, sharpened us, made us better, so that we were able to go on the tournament run that we did.
You opened the season on November 10th with Wayne State. Without giving too much away, what can Ashland fans expect to see? As I know that they'll pack Kate's Gymnasium for that first home game and that home opener to the season.
Yeah, that's the hope. We are so excited to be able to open up the season at home. We have 2 at home, and then we have to head up to the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, right before Thanksgiving. So it's going to be a fun turnaround there. But what people can expect from us, I think we're going to be an improved defensive team this year. I think that with the experience that we have coming back and our depth of athleticism and length, I think that's really going to help us defensively this year. I think we're going to be able to play a little bit faster than what we've done in the past. Obviously, we graduated 2 elite shooters, 3 elite shooters, but one who set the school record for made threes in a career, right? Hallie Heidemann was a special 3-point shooter. But with that being said, while we maybe lost a little bit of firepower from that standpoint, I think just our size and athleticism increased this year to where our identity might look a little bit different, but it's still going to be the same brand of Ashland basketball, ready to play with a ton of joy and energy and give it everything we have every game.
Well, in talking about packing Kates, I do have to ask this because I think it's a unique situation that not every university or college gets put in. But, Ashland women's basketball was picked number 1 in the preseason coaches poll. The men's team was also picked to win on the men's side. I don't think there has to be a whole lot to happen for Ashland fans to get excited about basketball season. But I have to ask you, does that take it to a new level? Maybe when the men's program is also jiving and doing well. I mean, that has to make maybe the buzz around campus maybe a little bit more special, with both teams really jiving on the basketball court.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for our men's team. They have a bunch of really awesome guys, very well coached. So I'm excited to see the season that they can put together. And the more games that we can try to have at Ashland, pack this place, the better of a season it's going to be. So I am thankful for the support from our university, from our community, just because I think playing at Ashland, even when opposing teams come, I know it might seem a little overwhelming, but I think it's really fun to play in front of an environment like that. And so we hope that that can continue throughout the course of the year.
In saying that, I want to backpedal just a little bit and maybe talk about, a personal thing. I think you mentioned being a part of some other teams. And for those who aren't familiar, Kari has a long standing history with Ashland and with Ashland basketball. She played there. She was an assistant coach there and then ultimately became the head coach. And I think that was something that got talked about a lot on your national championship run, because you won as a player at Ashland, you won as an assistant at Ashland, and now you won as a head coach. In saying all of that, when talking about some of the experiences that maybe some of these girls are going to go through, coming off a national championship, winning a national championship, you've seen, winning one and then becoming runner-up. Do you ever go back to those moments as a head coach, whether it be how you felt as a player, how you felt as an assistant coach? Do you ever go back to that when leading this team?
I feel like I frequently do, because those feelings are really real, right? The expectations, and I'm thankful for the experiences that I've had to be able to learn from those, because I know I mentioned it earlier, but just talking about the story a lot, that this year's story is going to look different than last year's. And we cannot try to define success by comparing this year's story to last year's story, because inevitably it will look different. It has to look different. The team is different. Our opponents are different, all of those things. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned during my previous experiences, is that you can expect this team to look and act and do the exact same thing that last year's team did, because that's not fair to them. They should have the opportunity to write their own story that's hopefully just as special and just as unique as the one before. And so my only request of my players is that they relentlessly pursue it. No matter what the ins and outs look like from there, if we're relentlessly pursuing what we want to do, then I think that we'll be able to walk away from this upcoming season, no matter if we finish with a win or not, knowing that it was success because we did our vision of relentlessly pursuing what we wanted to do.
Well, Kari, we appreciate the way that you've represented the Great Midwest over the last couple of years. Congratulations once again on winning a national championship, and we look forward to seeing what the Ashland Eagles bring to the court again this year. And I'm sure it'll be another awesome year at Kate's because, like you said, I think it's one of the better places to play a basketball game. And I think anytime there's a regional tournament there, people will tell you that they have a good time, even if they're just watching from afar. So they, the Ashland faithful definitely come out in full swing. So, Kari, best of luck this year. We appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to catching up with you hopefully down the road.
All right, well, thank you so much, Katie. If there's anything else you need, just let me know.
In NCAA Division II, community engagement is an initiative at all 25 national championships because student athletes want to give back while competing for a national title. Over the course of the year, Division II student athletes have an opportunity to leave a lasting impression in local communities throughout the country. Whether Division II student athletes are volunteering at hospitals, schools, after-school care programs, foster homes, or retirement villages, they make a difference in the lives of others. In Division II, we rise to the opportunity and make community engagement ours.
Well, you guys just heard from Kari Pickens. We now have the other half of the Ashland basketball program, the head man in charge, John Ellenwood of the men's program, who is also picked to finish first in the G-MAC by the fellow league coaches. John, thanks so much for taking some time this morning to talk to us about Ashland basketball.
Hey, great to be here.
Well, I mentioned, and I asked Kari the same thing, so I'm going to ask it to you as well. I don't think it takes a whole lot for the Ashland faithful to get too excited about Ashland basketball. I think you guys have built a wonderful following, but having both of you guys picked first in the league poll, I think maybe creates a little bit more excitement. What's the buzz like on campus as you're about a week away from basketball season?
Well, there's a good buzz. I mean, we have great sports all around here, so it's not like people are just focusing on one or two sports. I mean, we're great. Our women's soccer team is I think they're number 1 or number 2 in the country right now. Our football team is on a pretty good win streak, and our men's soccer team is fighting for a playoff spot in the GMAC, and volleyball's, I think, first place on their side, and you can go on with the other sports, but we're pretty good at a lot of sports. So people aren't real quick to move on from one season to the next, but there is definitely a buzz. Obviously our women's team being defending national champions and what they've accomplished over the past decade, and our team's got a lot of returners, and there is some excitement, but people are still focusing on that fall season right now.
Well, we call this crossover season in our office where fall hasn't quite ended, but the winter sports are getting started. So it's a busy time on all of our campuses. Well, I do want to ask you, obviously picked to finish first by the league coaches. Let's just talk about that a little bit, maybe any pressure that brings or how that kind of starts your season off as you get prepared to hit the hard court here in about a week or so.
Well, it creates expectations. And, I think, you got a giant bullseye on your back, and it's a nice honor to be picked that way and thought of by your league. But it's a tough league, and there's always a team that is hungry. And I've been trying to tell our guys, I said the expectations are big, but your effort has to be higher than the expectations in order for this to come to what they think you can accomplish. So. It's a very tough top to bottom league. I mean, you just saw, Kentucky Wesleyan last night, who I think is a great team and, could finish anywhere. They could win the league. They just beat an ACC team last night. So, and it's something where you have to come to play every single night. It's not going to be an easy league this year.
Well, I kind of want to piggyback on that. What is it like playing night to night in the GMAC every year? I think if you look at the way that things have landed on the men's side, especially last year, it was so close. That last spot to even get into the tournament came down to some tiebreakers. So, what is that like, and what kind of is that mindset when you go in and night out playing in the Great Midwest?
Well, yeah, I always it's very stressful, but you have to focus on what you can control, and that's one game at a time. And you know you gotta hold home court, and you got to really fight at home. And on the road, you just try to find a way to win by one. And whether it's ugly or not, a road victory feels like almost like two victories. But it's a lot of stress, especially the first time around in the league. Maybe the second time around, your scouting reports are a little easier to understand, and what you could do better, or what they did. But I think with us, it's always been, how do you handle that stress, and not, when you're in a race, you just worry about the steps you're taking, and that's kind of where we've always been pretty good. But it's definitely going to be a dogfight this year.
Well, before we get into personnel, I want to ask you, you guys were able to take a trip over the summer to Costa Rica. What was that like? What were you guys able to do? You played a little basketball, but what else were you able to do? And I'm sure there was some team bonding activities as well.
Yeah, it was outstanding. It's we're very fortunate to have a lot of support, and that's something that just where your guys can come back and get a couple practices in the summer. I call it a head start. So we're this fall, it seems like we're a little further ahead, and not as stressed out as other years where we're saying, oh, we don't have this in, we got to get this in. You can just really lay a foundation for your team in the summertime for what you need to get accomplished. So that was great. And our guys are back here on campus, and usually they're back home with their families. But we really got to know our new guys, and that was good for them to be on this trip and just share some experiences. And they get nicknames, they get stuff like that, where all of a sudden they feel more part of the family. But that trip was amazing. Beyond Sports was the one that did it. They did an excellent job for us, and it was first class from the moment we took off to the moment we got back in the States. And it was nice to get down there, see a beautiful country, and just immerse yourself in another culture for well over a week. And I think that the basketball was good. It was something where I think the first two games were good. The third game, a lot of our guys had gotten, I guess, food upset stomachs, and a lot of them didn't get to play in the last game. So it was a little bit different experience for us. But overall, it was a tremendous experience.
You do return a big chunk of your team from last year, 4 of your 5 starters, including Brandon Haraway, who was the Great Midwest Player of the Year, and Simon Wheeler, who was the Great Midwest Freshman of the Year. What does having that camaraderie, those returners, do not only for your team, but also when you're starting that preseason practice and guys kind of know what to expect from John Ellenwood and what you expect from them?
Yeah, I always tell our guys, I'm like, look, I'm in charge of the program, and the standards, the expectations of where we need to be as a program are on my shoulders. Who we bring into the program is on my shoulders, but the team, it belongs to the players. And for us, having a team of veterans usually means that you're going to be in contention for something pretty good. If the coach is in charge of the team, then we're building, and I don't want to build ever here. I think when you have those guys that are returning and they understand my standards, my expectations for how our program's supposed to behave, and the things that we need to do to be successful, in my opinion, those guys, if they own up to those, then their team will be very successful. So, I think having a Brandon Haraway voice in practice for young guys is a lot more powerful than listening to a John Ellenwood voice. And that's when you have those type of leaders, and Simon Wheeler is developing into that leader. that's outstanding for us. So when Brandon Haraway moves on, and then the next guy is coming up, and he knows that, hey man, that guy was a tremendous leader. I want to step into his shoes. They're not fearful of it; they embrace it, and I think that's something that having those veterans back really helps establish that leadership, and for the next team, and that's something that we're excited about this year is. These guys, they if they want it, their voices will be bigger than mine.
On top of those returners, a couple of transfers that come in as well. What can those guys bring to this Ashland team?
Oh, talent. The thing with these transfers is they're ready. They understand college. They understand that it's more than basketball. You have to come to college. They understand the day in and day outs of things. So once they get their feet on the ground at the new university, but they understand the what it takes to get it done in the classroom. They understand the study skills. They understand how to socialize. All those things are kind of already taken care of. They usually have a more mature body, and that helps out. So we have some very good transfers this year, and I'm excited to see how they mix in. That's the hardest part. I transferred in college, and it took about a semester to really figure out the way things are done. And that's kind of where we are with these guys. And, they have to learn a new language. My language is different than where they were, and it was different than their high school coaches. So they have to understand the language. They have to understand the movements, and what those movements are. So but they're more mature about handling that stuff. So where your general freshmen, when they come in, it's a whole new world for them, and then learning the vocabulary on top of learning how to socialize, learning how to study, all that stuff adds on to those freshmen. People talk about freshman fatigue. That's where it comes from, is the stresses of the academics adjustments and the social adjustments. So I think our veterans, those transfers, the stress isn't as great for them, so they can really focus on the basketball. But Cooper Davis, outstanding shooter from University of Toledo. Javen Etzler, who's an outstanding player, from Miami of Ohio, had some injuries, but he's healthy now. So it's tremendous talent. Somebody that we normally wouldn't get out of high school. That's the bonus of this transfer portal, and being able to get some guys like that. And then we have Travell Adams, who's a junior college transfer and had a tremendous career so far. He's very established. So those three guys should add to our team.
When you talk about a veteran-heavy program, you get some of these transfers who are a veteran in their own right, as you just explained. Without giving too much away, what can fans expect when they come and watch Ashland men's basketball this year?
Well, our team will always be very balanced. That's what I learned when I was a player in college at the College of Worcester, and it's just something where if it's your night, we're going to feed you. If we think we have a mismatch where we can get advantages, that's what we're always going to go after. So, I don't think there's a Superman that comes in and it's just like, man, this guy's going to, lead us to a championship. It's as good as, players as we have returning. They understand that winning takes balance, and that's something that people will see when they come to our games.
Well, you open the season on November 10th against Grand Valley State in Cage Gymnasium. The women will be there too, a doubleheader of sorts. How exciting is that to kick off the season at home? And I won't ask you too much about your scout of Grand Valley, but what do you hope to see from your guys on that first night coming out of the gates?
Well, I hope they're ready to compete, because Grand Valley, I honestly, we haven't started watching them. It's 10 days away or so, but they're going to have talent. We're not going to out talent Grand Valley ever. So that's something that they're going to be an excellent program. I guarantee they're hungry to win. They got their coach is in his second year, and they're gonna try to establish something, and they're going to be hungry to knock off Ashland, and that's something. That I guarantee they've had circled on their calendar for a while, but we better be ready to compete in games like that. They don't break your season or make it, but I mean, they definitely tell you where you are in terms of competitiveness and you're going to find some flaws whether you win or lose in your program, and that's something that we're going to try to eliminate beforehand. But once you get in that fight, you got to figure out how tough you are, and Grand Valley would be a great test.
Well, of course, best of luck as you kick off the season against them, a good regional opponent to start off the year with. John, we appreciate your time today, and of course, best of luck with the rest of the season, and we'll be catching up with you sometime down the road, I'm sure.
Thanks, Katie.